Okay, good evening everyone. My name's Andy Clark. I'm one of the team leaders in fire protection with Leicestershire Fire and Rescue Service. Welcome to our virtual business fire safety workshop. This is our first virtual business safety workshop, so please bear with us. We've run several this year. Been very well received by members of the public, but they have been face to face, and this is our virtual one. So we are lending ourselves a little bit to Zoom and to technology. So if we have any technical hiccups, please bear with us. So a little bit about the fire protection department within Leicestershire. So we are the enforcing authority for Leicestershire. Basically our role is to come out and audit your premises to make sure that you are fulfilling your moral and legal obligation under the fire safety order, to make sure that you're keeping any residents that you're responsible for, or anybody that works for you in the workplace, safe in the event of a fire. So that's our main role. We have a number of powers as the enforcing authority. In severe circumstances, we can actually prohibit the use of your business or even prosecute. Now, obviously, we don't want to go down that route, which is the whole point of doing the safety workshop, so that we can work with you, support you, give you the knowledge and education, so that when we come out to audit your premises, they are where they need to be. You've been invited to our workshop basically because we will be coming out to your premises within the next 12 months and auditing. We want to make sure that you've got all the knowledge and everything that you need before we come out. I'll shortly be passing you over to Jonathan and to Sophie. They're two of our inspecting officers. They're two of the people that will be coming out and auditing your premises over the next 12 months. They are the font of all knowledge on fire safety, so please pick their brains. And obviously this is slightly unusual. If we were face to face, it would be quite easy for you to put your hands up and ask questions. We don't actually have that facility, obviously, because it's virtually. However, what you will notice at the bottom of your screen is a Q&A icon. So at any time you can click onto that icon, type in a question, press the send button, and that will go through to Simon, who's one of our senior inspecting officers, and he will reply to your questions. If after the workshop's finished, you suddenly think, oh, I should ask that question, then you have our emails. Please send us an email or give us a call. We are open for business 24/7, so please ask those questions. Make the most of this evening. Thank you for your time, and thank you for attending the workshop. Hopefully it'll be beneficial for you, your business and your staff. Thanks very much.
Okie dokie, right then. Yep, so welcome everybody. Thanks Andy for those introductions. As Andy said, this is our first online webinar, so if we have any technical issues, you'll just need to bear with us. And let me see if I can get to our first couple of slides. Off to a good start. There we go. Excellent. It works. Right. Okay. So you've seen Andy already. He is one of the team leaders and a station manager. And then also you have me, Jonathan. You'll be meeting Sophie and Simon later on. We've talked a little bit about the way this is set up. So we have muted your microphones and your cameras are switched off. That's for your privacy. As Andy said, if you do want to ask any questions, then please use the Q&A feature. I can see someone's asked a question already, and Simon is online and he will try and answer as we go along. But we have disabled the chat function. Okay. Right then, so I'm going to start with a question. So what percentage of businesses that have a significant fire never recover? So by significant, we mean a fire that we would attend, that the fire engine would turn out to. So obviously you're not going to be able to put your hands up here, but does anyone think it's 44, 67 or 86%? What would you guess? Believe it or not, it's actually 86%. The cost of a fire is very significant, and it's crippling to most businesses, and they never really recover from that. And so that's why it's really good that you guys are here. We want to avoid you ending up in that 86%. quite surprising. We're going to try something a little different. We've got an online poll now, so I'm hoping my colleague can put the poll up on the screen for you. There we go. So hopefully you guys can see that now. So I'll just give you a minute just to have a read of those questions, and please just, you know, click and answer as you go. Okay, we're getting some good answers in. We've got 67 out of 81 people that have responded. So we're looking around 85% of you. So it's interesting. So on the first question there, we're looking at about 60% of people that do know their responsibilities and obligations under the fire safety order. That's fantastic. Question number 2, that's really good. So 91% of you saying that you're happy with knowing what a fire risk assessment is. That's good. We will talk quite a bit about fire risk assessments this evening, but it's a great sign that you all know what one is. And then finally, do you know who is responsible for fire safety in your building? Again, very positive that you're all ticking yes there, 89%. So fantastic. Right, I think I can just close the poll now. So yeah, thank you for that. All right. See if we can drive the IT again. Okay. Sorry, guys, I promise we will get slicker at this as we go through the presentation. So a little bit about the fire protection team. So we're actually based at Birstall, at the Fire and Rescue headquarters. That's where we are now. I forgot to say at the start, actually, we are on a working fire station. So if you start to see flashing lights and sirens, don't panic. That's just the crew responding to a call. The team is made up of 17 inspecting officers, and we have 3 fire safety advisors and 2 team leaders. You've already met Andy this evening. And that team provides 24/7 cover. So during the daytime, we have people in the office, but then outside of office hours, we have a team also on duty that respond to incidents or concerns that come up at night time as well. So it's 365 days of the year, and it's 24/7. So we are busy, and we do get quite a few out of hours calls as well. A bit about our responsibilities. So Andy's already mentioned this. We are an enforcing authority, and the legislation we work under is known as the Fire Safety Order, and that came into force back in 2005. And basically our team, our responsibility, as it says there, is to reduce the likelihood of a fire and the consequences of that fire. So if we're doing our job well, we should see the numbers of fires reducing. And then those fires that do unfortunately still happen, we want the consequences to be as small and minor as possible. So that's basically what we do. How we do that? Well, we carry out fire safety audits and inspections. In the financial year that's just about to start, we're hoping to audit around 1,000 businesses from across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. So that's quite a big workload. And then as well as the audits, we do respond to fire safety concerns. So these may come in from members of the public. We get quite a few, actually. People stay in perhaps a hotel and notice missing fire doors maybe, and they might email us through. But then we also get concerns from partner agencies. So we do all work together, and these are the regulatory authorities feed information to us, and we all share and talk to one another. So hopefully you're familiar with some of those. The CQC there at the bottom, they look after care homes. Obviously, you know, the police and the local authorities, the borough councils and district councils. So we do all talk to each other. These are some of the premises that we work in and where the legislation applies. So houses in multiple occupation, there's lots of those in every town and city across the county. Hotels and bed and breakfasts, I'm sure you're familiar with. Residential care homes, we've already just mentioned. Factories and warehouses, yeah, that's quite a big area of work for us. We do audit a lot of factories and warehouses. Schools and universities, as it says. Offices and shops. So I'm guessing there'll be quite a few people here tonight who are here on behalf of office. Places of assembly, so that's pubs, nightclubs, things like that, as it says restaurants. And then we also look at flats and bedsits and high-rise blocks of flats as well. And then very finally, commercial splits. Now, we will touch on commercial splits right at the end of the presentation, but if you're not sure what a commercial split is, think of a shop downstairs and then accommodation above. You see it down every single high street, you know, takeaway on the ground floor and then a flat with sleeping above. So those are the businesses and the premises that we visit, that we audit. Okay, so that was a brief overview of what we do and our responsibilities. Now we'll spend a bit of time looking at your responsibilities. So the fire safety order says that you are responsible for fire safety in your business if you are an employer, the owner, the landlord, an occupier, or anybody else with control of the premises. So if you're a facilities manager or a fire risk assessor, then you will have some responsibilities under the fire safety order. Now, if you were all in front of me now, I'd ask for a quick show of hands, but would you all agree that you fall into one of those categories? Hopefully so. Good, then you're in the right place. Okay, so we've established now that you are a responsible person and you do have some legal obligations under the fire safety order. So there are basically 5 key responsibilities, and we'll touch on those now. So the fire safety order says that you must carry out a fire risk assessment of the premises. Once you've undertaken a fire risk assessment, you must then review it. It is a living document, it's always changing. So it's not a one-time deal, you've got to keep it reviewed. As well as that, you must also tell your staff or anyone that's working for you about the risks that you've identified in that fire risk assessment. That's something that you must do. You must communicate that. Once you've done your fire risk assessment and told everybody about it, you then must put in place and maintain fire safety measures. Now, what does that mean? Fire safety measures are things like a fire alarm or fire extinguishers. So once you've identified a hazard in the risk assessment, you've got to do something about it. You've got to put control measures in place. Okay, hopefully everyone's still following along. Another responsibility there is it says you must plan what to do in the event of a fire emergency. So you need an emergency action plan. A plan that tells people what to do if they hear the fire alarm or what to do if they discover a fire. Now, you've all stayed in hotels, I'm sure, and on the back of the hotel door, you'll see a fire action notice. That's a really simple emergency action plan. Yeah, and the law says you must do one of those. Okay. And then once you've done all this work, the final point there says that you must provide your staff with information, fire safety instruction and training. Okay, so once you've done this piece of work, it must be communicated to everybody that you're responsible for. Okay, so those are your 5 key responsibilities, and we will keep coming back to those throughout this presentation. Okay, guys, I know it's a lot to take in, but hopefully you're keeping up here and you're following along. In just a moment, in fact now actually, I'm going to pass you over to Sophie. So Sophie's going to take you through the points you see on the screen there in a little bit more detail. Please, guys, if any of this isn't making sense, use that Q&A feature, type into the chat. I can see my colleagues across the room there. They are on hand to answer any questions that you've got. Okay.
Hi, I hope you can all see me okay. So John has gone through the main bits of things that you are required under the fire safety order to provide as responsible people. So I'm now going to go through in detail fire risk assessments. So this is what is going to help you put your fire safety measures in place. The testing and maintenance, so what to test, how often to test it, such as the doors, alarms, emergency lighting, and so on. The action plans that Jono spoke about, so putting measures in place, putting procedures in place for if a fire was to happen in your premises, and making sure that people know what to do. So training is important. So you might have fire marshals, you might be required to carry out fire drills, staff inductions, and so on and so on. Record keeping, having a fire logbook and keeping that documentation is your evidence that you are doing what you're required to do under the fire safety order. And then I'll talk about the inspections that we carry out. So what to expect when we come along to your premises to carry out a fire safety inspection. It is important to remember that not all of your businesses are the same. So the arrangements that you need to put in place for a small shop would be very different to that of a multi-story hotel, for example. So it is important to, if I mention some things and you think I haven't got that in place, it might be that you don't need that in place. So please don't worry. So what is a fire risk assessment? It's an organised and methodical look at your premises, the activities that go on there and the likelihood that a fire could start and the harm that it could cause to those in and around the premises. So the aim is to identify the fire hazards, to reduce the risk of those hazards causing harm, and to decide what control measures you put in place. So if I use the analogy of spilt water, okay, mop and bucket, the hazard is you've got spilt water. What are you going to do about it? Well, you're going to get your mop and bucket and clean up that water, and by doing that, you've reduced the risk. So if you're thinking about your premises, what is the hazard in your premises? It could be a process that you're carrying out, or it could be a sleep-in risk. What can you do to reduce those hazards causing harm? So the implementation of fire alarms, something like that. Okay, so do you need a fire risk assessment? The answer is yes. You must legally carry out a fire risk assessment for your premises. Every single one of your premises will need a fire risk assessment. If you employ 5 or more people, you need to keep a written record of your fire risk assessment and the significant findings. However, we advise everybody to keep a written record of the risk assessment. It's best practice, because again, when we come to inspect your premises, this will be one of the first documents that we ask to see. That demonstrates that you've considered the risk in your premises, you've identified them, and you've put control measures in place. The risk assessment should be reviewed on an annual basis, or if you have significant change in your premises, so if you change the use of your premises or you decide to have an extension to enlarge the size of the premises, the fire risk assessment will need updating. So who should carry out the risk assessment? A competent person, and that is somebody who's had enough training, experience and knowledge of fire safety and your business. So you can employ the competent person, such as a fire risk assessor. So you can look at the links that we have here, the Institute of Fire Engineers or the Fire Sector Federation. If you go on there, you'll find a list of local fire engineers, risk assessors. Or if you feel comfortable and confident, it may be that you can carry out the risk assessment yourself, because nobody knows your business better than yourself. To support you, the government have produced a suite of guides. They're called the CLG guides, you can see there, but I have one here. There we go. Okay, there's a whole range that vary from factories and warehouses, sleeping accommodation, offices and shops. So all of these guides are freely available on our website and on the local government website. And we will also be sending you a copy of these guides, the most popular guides that you might need, tomorrow in an email. But these guides provide examples of fire risk assessments. They talk about everything that we're going to be discussing today. So we know that you need a fire risk assessment. The fire risk assessment has enabled you to identify the risks and to put fire safety measures in place. So those fire safety measures will be things such as fire alarms, extinguishers, emergency lights, signage, fire exits, doors. So you must be carrying out regular daily, weekly, and monthly checks. That doesn't matter, irrespective of the size of your premises, you must maintain these measures that you've put in place. If you discover on one of these checks that there's an issue, so for example, you have some fire doors and the self-closer isn't working, that would be a defect and that would need to be put right as quickly as possible. Any annual maintenance, and all of your arrangements will need an annual maintenance, they must be carried out by a competent person, such as an accredited engineer. So every day you're required, when you arrive at your premises, to do your daily checks. So walking around, the minute you get there, you should be unlocking all of your doors. Walk around your escape routes to ensure that they're clear from obstructions and rubbish. Remove all bolts and padlocks. Check that all doors on escape routes swing freely and close fully. Check the fire alarm panel if you've got a panel. Remember, not everybody's going to have a fire panel, but check that there are no faults on there. Check that the emergency lightings are in good working order and that the signage is still legible. The weekly test that you need to do is for the fire alarm, okay? And we do recommend that you record all of your maintenance checks. So if you have a manual call point system like the one that you can see here, then you can use a key to check that manual call point, recording all of the checks in the logbook. The monthly test that you need to do is for the emergency lighting. So, and again, if you have emergency lighting, because not all premises will need emergency lighting, but this will have been highlighted in your fire risk assessment. But you can see from this picture here that we're using a fishtail key and we do the flip test, but it might be that you just need a torch in your premises. It might be that you don't need any emergency lighting and you've got borrowed light from the street. But depending on the type of system you've got, you should be able to carry out most of these routine checks by yourself. And if you're not sure, you can call out your electrician or whoever's fitted the emergency lighting and ask them to show you how to do these checks. So the extinguishers, they need to be checked on a monthly basis. So you're checking that the pin is intact, you're checking the pressure gauge, you're checking that they're still available. So if you have a public premises where you have visitors come in, you're checking that they haven't been tampered with as well, okay? So I'm going to show you a video now on how to check your fire doors.
Hello, today I'm going to talk about how to check your fire door in 5 simple steps. To do that, you will need your fire door checker and a mobile phone or mirror. All fire doors should be clearly labelled fire door, keep shut. Step 1, checking for certification. You'll find this along the edge of the door or along the top, and that's where you'll need your phone. So step 2, we want to check that the door fits nicely in the frame. We don't want any gaps of more than 4mm all the way around and 10mm at the bottom. This is where you're going to need your 3mm door checker, and we're going to run it down the sides and along the top. That was a good fit. Step 3, we want to check the intermittent strips and cold smoke seals. You'll find those here along the frame, or they could be positioned in the door. You want to check that they're in good condition, not painted over and not missing. Step 4, all fire doors should have 3 securely fitted hinges. 1, 2, 1 at the bottom. Step 5, this is the most important step of all. is to check that the fire door closes properly. We're checking the self-closing device. A door must never be wedged open like this door because it will allow fire and smoke to travel through it. To check the effectiveness of the self-closing device, we allow the door to close from an open position, checking that it sits nicely in the frame. These 5 simple steps should take no more than a couple of minutes per door. They should be carried out on a monthly basis. Please remember to log all maintenance checks in your fire logbook.
Right, okay. You'll see in that video I was using one of these fire door checkers. We do have a limited amount of these. So if you have quite a substantial amount of fire doors within your premises, contact us and we'll be able to pop one over to you in the post, or you can come over to our headquarters and pick one up. That's fine. Okay, so the annual maintenance checks, these must be completed by a competent person. So for your fire alarm, you need a fire alarm engineer. For the emergency lighting, you'd need an electrician. And for the extinguishers, you would need the provider of the extinguishers to come out and carry those checks. Within the guide that we showed you here, this is the guide that I showed you earlier. There is an index here, it's Appendix A, and you'll see that in this guide, and it details all of the checks that you need to do. And again, remember, record all of your testing and maintenance in the fire safety logbook, because again, when we come to audit, this is what we're going to be asking to see. We want to see that you've been maintaining your fire safety measures. Okay, so number 3, the third thing that you're going to need is emergency action plans. And as Jono touched upon earlier, this is telling people in your premises what to do in the event of a fire. So you've carried out your risk assessment, you've put all of your measures in place, and now you need to have plans and policies. You must have the emergency action plan for dealing with any fire situation, and this policy must be available to all of your employees. Okay, so we would recommend that you deliver this to all of your staff as part of staff training, as part of induction training. Have a copy of this up in and around your premises, maybe in your staff canteen. In small offices and shops, an emergency action plan, it might be nothing more than the simple fire action notice you can see on screen. But when you are doing your emergency action plans, it is important that you consider people with disabilities. And let's remember that not all disabilities are visible. So we need to be thinking about hearing disabilities and other sorts of disabilities. So I'm going to show you another video now. You may be familiar with the office, but this is a kind of demonstration really of what could happen if you don't put the appropriate plan in place. Right, so you can see that if you don't have an emergency action plan, things could go wrong. Emergency action plans are tested by fire drills. Okay, it's your fire drill that's going to let you know how effective your emergency action plan is. If you carry out a fire drill and things are not going right and it takes people 10 minutes to get out, you know that your emergency action plan is going to need to be reviewed. All members of staff need to be given a copy of the emergency action plan. So this could be an induction. If you have a high staff turnover, you're going to be needing to give all of the staff the emergency action plan, and fire drills maybe need to be carried out more frequent than not. It's important if you have different shift patterns as well within your premises that you include all of your staff. So it may be that if you have a care home, for example, one fire drill will consist of day staff, and then the next fire drill will consist of evening staff, something like that. So once a year, you're ensuring that all members of staff have taken part in a fire drill. The record of the fire drill should be kept again in that all-important fire logbook. And again, we do have a template on our website, and we will be sending you a copy of this as well. It's important to log all outcomes. So you're looking at logging the time, how long it took people to get out, how many people were involved in the fire drill, And it's important to put positive comments as well as negative comments. This is all a learning curve. But again, these are the sorts of documents that we'll be looking at when we come to carry out your fire safety audit. Okay, so staff training is a legal requirement. You must provide sufficient fire safety training for all of your staff. So this must include the outcomes of your fire risk assessment, the emergency action plan, roles and responsibilities. So if you have a larger premise and you have fire marshals, they're going to have additional responsibilities. For example, if you have a multi-storey premise with various toilets or various areas where members of the public can go, you're going to need one of your fire marshals to go and sweep the building to make sure that members of the public are safe and well evacuated. Practicing your fire drills, that counts as staff training. And for nominated staff, which may be the fire marshals, you need fire extinguisher training. But all staff need to know what the procedures are for reporting defects, for general fire safety, for knowing not to block the means of escape, you know, the way out of the building, keeping it clean and tidy and having good housekeeping. All of this counts as good fire safety training. So all staff must be given information and instruction on day one. So the minute your new member of staff arrives at the building, and we know and appreciate that your new member of staff will have lots of training on their first day, you'll have health and safety, and they've got their job to learn as well, so we understand. But fire safety is very important because you could have a fire in your premises on day one. So have a walk around of the premises, show them the way out, the rear exit, the side exit, however many exits you've got, tell them what to do in the event of a fire, and make sure that you include staff who work outside of normal working hours, such as contract cleaners or maintenance staff. So in a small premises, such as a shop, if you've just got a very small shop, you still need to have good record keeping and demonstrate that you've got a good knowledge of fire safety awareness, and you're putting in place all of the measures that you need. But if you just have one or two members of staff, verbal basic instruction could be absolutely fine. And we would always recommend as well, the training that you provide your staff, get them to sign and date it, okay? And staff training should be renewed annually. Okay, number 5, the all-important record keeping. This is your evidence that you are doing what you need to do to comply with the fire safety order. So when we come along to check compliance, this is your evidence. So the fire safety logbook will be recording all of your defects, your regular tests, any false alarms that you have, or the maintenance that's carried out, staff training, the date it was delivered, what training you covered. So if you're using online resources or online training, detail who the provider was, the name of the website, things like that, recording all of your evacuation drills. And again, this is what we will be looking at when we come to inspect. So some of you will be having a fire safety audit by ourselves at some point over the next year. And what should you expect? Well, first of all, myself or a member of my team will give you a call. We will always arrange the appointment so it's mutually convenient. We'll do our best to give you 28 days notice. We send you an appointment letter, and that will detail all the documents that we need to see. And our contact details are on there so that you can give us a call to discuss anything beforehand if you so wish. Our email details are there so you can email us your documents over. But when we arrive at your premises, the inspection will take about an hour or so, again, depending on the size of your premises. Obviously, the bigger the premises, the longer the audit might take. But we will be looking at this documentation. It will be the first thing that we do. We will ask to see your risk assessments, the emergency action plan, the maintenance records, the fire safety logbook, and so on, everything that we've discussed. Then after we've looked at the documentation, we will have a walk around the premises. So we will be looking to see that you have in place what you say you've got in place on paper. So we will be looking at the alarm system, we'll be checking the fire panel to make sure that it's not in fault and that it's nice and healthy and in good working order. We'll be looking for emergency lighting, again, if appropriate for your premises. We'll be looking at the compartmentation to reduce fire spread, and Jono will be talking about compartmentation in a moment. We'll be looking at the fire doors and the escape routes. So we will be checking the condition of the fire doors, like in that video that I showed you earlier, we'll be doing that. We'll be checking that the escape routes are easily passable and not cluttered with items from your business. The fire extinguishers, we'll be making sure that they are suitable and sufficient for use and in the correct location, and general housekeeping, and we'll be looking out for any other hazards. It is important also to remember that we are there to help and support you as well. I know that the idea of an audit can be a bit daunting and a bit scary, and it really isn't anything to worry about, because we are there to help you and support you and assist you to make sure that your building is safe from fire. So what will happen after the audit? So we will have a good idea of the outcome of the audit whilst we're at your premises, but we won't know for certain until we get back and we've run our computer program that we need to run. But there are several outcomes. The first outcome that we want and we aim for you to have is educate and inform, and this means that you comply with the fire safety order. We're happy with everything that you've seen, you've provided everything that we've asked for, and you've done everything that we've been talking about in this presentation today. So you can see there in green, this is the best outcome, this is what we aim to achieve. Then after that, there is a notification of deficiencies. So we've identified a few issues. There are a few concerns, but we will talk to you about them while we're walking around your building. We will say, oh, this is missing, that's missing, or, and we will discuss it with you. So it wouldn't be any surprise when you receive the deficiency notice of the work that you're required to do. But we wouldn't come and revisit you after that. You would be issued with the notice, and there's an expectation that that work has been carried out or will be carried out by you. Once we've inspected your premises and the outcome is a deficiency, it's probably quite likely that we will re-inspect at some point down the line, 2, 3, 4 years maybe, but the expectation is that when we visit, those works have been carried out. When we start to see more serious risk to life and bigger issues, you could be issued with an enforcement notice. So this is a legal notice, it goes on a public register. We do our best to try and avoid this, but if we have to issue them, we do, because ultimately we're looking at the safety of people. In Leicester, we have come up with a mutual agreement, if you like. So if we feel that you have a good attitude towards fire safety and you're prepared to work well, we can issue what we call an action plan. This is the same as the enforcement notice, and for both of these we will revisit after 3 months, but the action plan, we don't put it on the enforcement register. Okay, if we visit after 3 months and the work hasn't been completed, you would automatically be upgraded to the enforcement notice. If you have been issued an enforcement notice and after 3 months we revisit and that work hasn't been carried out, we will consider prosecution. Obviously, again, this is not what we like to do, and we hope to aim and support you, but unfortunately there are occasions where we do need to prosecute, and we have. Another outcome from the audit can be a prohibition notice. This is where we see that there's immediate risk to life and we have to prohibit use of the premises or part use of the premises. Okay, so you can see there that there are various outcomes of the audit, and that all will really vary on how much you've put in terms of the fire safety measures. Okay. So I'm going to pass you back over to Jono now, who's just going to touch upon in a little bit more detail some of the items that I touched, and you can see that some pictures here, and he's going to go through that video. Okay.
Great, wow, thank you. Hello again, everyone. I'm just going to try and get a little pointer on screen. So if I do this, hopefully now you can all see, yeah, little laser pointer, great. So we've gone through a lot of information there. I know there's a lot to take on board. The good news is we're going to send you this presentation tomorrow in that email we'll send out, so you can go through it again in your own time. I've had a chat with our web team next door, and so far we've answered 25 questions, so that's great. Keep those coming in. I know Simon's working hard there to try and answer all the questions before the end of the presentation. So what I want to do now is we're just going to go through some pictures, and I'm sorry this can't be interactive, but I'll do what I can to sort of explain what we're seeing on screen. We've talked about fire alarm systems. Now, we know not every premises will have a fire alarm, but if you do, some of this might look familiar. This picture up here, hopefully you can see the little laser pointer. So your fire alarm panel should look nice and healthy and just have green lights. I don't know if you can see here, but we're actually indicating a fault, and we're also indicating a fire. So this is not a healthy fire alarm. If when you do your checks, your alarm panel looks like this, you're going to need an engineer. You need to get an expert out to try and fix that, because that's very, very unhealthy and potentially dangerous. Okay, we'll move up to this image here. Now, this red cabling is fire alarm cabling. It's designed to keep working even if it's involved in fire. The problem is somebody's gone and actually cut the cable to join it. Now, the cover's missing, but even if the cover were there, we've still got a problem. Okay, there's no protection to that cabling. So if there were a fire, that fire alarm would fail and it wouldn't do its job. Down in the bottom here, this blanking cap's actually been put over a detector, so that's clearly not going to work. Also, I don't know if you can make that out, but there's a big problem in the ceiling. It looks like there's been a flood and the ceiling's actually dropped in, and that's going to affect compartmentation. So a fire in this room is going to produce smoke. That smoke is going to go straight through the ceiling and spread throughout the building. So that's quite a serious issue. And then on the right hand side here, this one's obvious, isn't it? The detector head's taken a bash. Maybe it will still work, maybe it won't work. But if you're doing your inspections and you see problems like this, then they're going to need to be fixed. Okay, this is not acceptable. Okay, next slide. Right, here we go. Internal means of escape. So if we look at this left-hand image, first of all, it might not be immediately obvious what the problems are. So yeah, we can see it's a fire door. It's got our 3 hinges. It's got a self-closing device. Worryingly, it's got a lock. Yeah, a security lock, and really that shouldn't be there. If I don't know the combination, I can't get through that door. So that's issue number 1. Issue number 2 is all this combustible material here. So, you know, we see this a lot in charity shops where space is a real premium. Your means of escape should be sterile, you know, as much as possible. If a fire gets into here, this will prevent it being used as a means of escape. So, you know, I know storage is tight, but you cannot go storing items in a means of escape. Okay. So let's look at the right-hand photo. Again, similar issues. It's clearly an escape route. There's a sign up here leading to a fire door, but somebody's gone and parked a pallet in the way. Yeah, there's no way I'm getting past that, guys. Not acceptable. That escape route needs to be kept clear at all times. There might be some other issues here around what's like a gas meter. Again, I wouldn't expect to see that on a means of escape, but you know, if this looks like your property, you might have a bit of work to do. Okay. Right, next slide. Here we go. So now let's look at an external means of escape. We'll start on the left. Again, there's a few things going on here. This external staircase is presumably a means of escape from upstairs. So the first issue I see is, you know, is that passable at all times? Are people going to be able to safely get down here without tripping? There's another issue as well, that this is all combustible material. And again, if somebody's smoking a cigarette out the back of the shop here and carelessly flicks the end away, you know, you could have a fire here, and that might cut off that as a means of escape. A further complication is you may be the occupier on the first floor, and this rubbish might not be yours. You know, you may not have created this problem, but unfortunately, you're going to need to do something about it. So that's where you're going to need to cooperate and coordinate with, you know, the occupiers on the ground floor to make sure that rubbish gets cleared away, because it can't stay like that. On the right-hand image here, hopefully you can make this out, guys. There's a padlock on that gate. So if that's my means of escape, you know, I'm not going to be able to get to a place of safety. So I know security is often an issue, particularly in the city. But if you have an external means of escape, you know, first thing in the morning when your business is open and occupied, that padlock has to come off. If security is an issue, you need to come up with a better solution, maybe a push pad or a crash bar or an electronic system that's linked to the fire alarm. But we don't want to be seeing things like this. Okay, moving on. Sticking with external escapes, actually, the photo on the left here, now this will take a bit of explaining. We can see an external fire escape again, so that's for the people upstairs, but here we've got an open window. Now imagine if there's a fire in that room. Yeah, the flames, the smoke, they're going to start pouring out of that window, cutting this off. Yeah, it won't be a safe means of escape. So what we would expect to see here is a window that can't be opened. Yeah, the photo on the right, or sorry, the image on the right shows you where there are windows and doors that open onto or near an external escape. They have to be fire resisting. So I wouldn't usually see a UPVC window there. It would normally be a wooden window, and it would be sealed shut. There's a few exceptions if the room is a toilet, say, but if it's a storeroom, a kitchen or a workshop, then that window wouldn't really open. Okay, so again, if you're doing your walk around and you start to see things that are looking like this, you're going to need to get some advice. You're going to need a fire risk assessor out, yeah, because that's not acceptable. Okay, moving on. Right then, so Sophie talked a lot about fire doors, and that video did a great job of explaining it. These issues should be very obvious to you all now. So left-hand side here, we can see a missing intumescent strip. So it looks good at the top of the door, but it's missing on the bottom of the door. It's not going to do its job. This next photo along, you know, fire doors need to be of a solid wooden construction. Their job is to hold the fire back, to stop the smoke and the flame from spreading through the building. But if you go and drill holes in the door, they're not going to do their job. So, you know, we shouldn't be seeing this. This needs to be sound construction. Next image along. I'd normally ask if you were in front of me there, what do you think's wrong with that photo? Well, I mean, it's not really obvious, actually. I mean, the strips and seals are there, the hinge is there, but it looks a bit shabby. And if I'm auditing a premises and I start to see shabbiness like this, I'm thinking, well, maybe they're not on top of their maintenance. If they're happy to accept that as a fire door, where else are they cutting corners? You know, it paints a bit of a picture, doesn't it? So if your doors are starting to look a bit old and a bit tired, you might need to up your maintenance game a little bit. Okay. And then finally, on the right hand side, this one's dead easy. So we've got a self-closing device and it's been disconnected. We see this quite a lot. It's not going to do its job. That door is not going to close in the event of a fire, and the flames and smoke are just going to spread. So when you're doing your walk arounds, when you're doing your inspections, if you see this, it's got to be fixed. Okay. Good stuff. Housekeeping. Okay, right then. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? On the left-hand side there's quite a buildup of rubbish. There are open windows. It wouldn't take much for a fire to start and for all of that smoke and those flame to get inside your building and cause a fire inside. So we don't like to see large quantities of combustibles stacked right against the building. And again, like the external means of escape, that might not be your rubbish, but unfortunately it could still be your problem. So if this looks familiar, you know, it's something you're going to need to address. Okay. Right hand side here, you know, fair enough, this isn't labeled as a fire exit. It may not be a means of escape, but obviously we've got pallets that prevent the door from opening, and again, they're combustible. So yeah, okay, it's not labeled up as a means of escape, but I wouldn't like to see this if I'm auditing. There's a little statistic at the bottom there that says in 2019, 2020, 27% of non-dwelling fires were deliberately set. So arson is a really big problem. Okay, so don't make it easy for somebody to affect your business. You know, get that rubbish cleared away. All good. Pretty obvious stuff, isn't it? Okay, a few less obvious ones. So other hazards that we spot when we're auditing that you guys should be picking up. You know, gas cylinders should not be stored inside. You need secure storage that's ideally away from the building in a locked compound, and you need to keep the empty cylinders and the full cylinders separate as well where possible. So again, if we're doing audits and we see things like this, you know, that's very concerning for us. The middle one is perhaps not so obvious. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but that's a riser inlet. So you'd normally see those in, say, tall buildings where there's internal plumbing for firefighting. So if there's a fire in that building, the crews will come along and they will connect hoses onto these couplings here. The difficulty you guys have managing that premises is these are often on the outside of the building, by the front door, but not always in an area that you'd inspect. So just consider them when you're doing your morning walk arounds and you're on top of your maintenance. You know, remember these inlets and make sure that they're not, you know, they're going to be in good working order. Okay, down the bottom here, overloaded plug sockets. Now that's a big cause of fire. Okay, we don't like to see daisy chaining extension leads, you know, 5 gang plugged into a 5 gang and so on and so on. Okay, you know, if you're going to have to spend a bit of money and get an electrician out, then that's the way it's got to be. You know, we don't want to see these daisy chained extension leads because, as I say, they do cause fires. They do overheat. Okay, sorry guys, I know this is heavy going, but we're almost there. The photo on the right, man, there's quite a bit going on here, really. I don't know if you guys can tell, but there's actually a panel missing on the front here. So there are live electrical connections that are exposed. Definitely not safe. There's also combustible materials, stored in that area. You know, I'd want to see that clear. So, yeah, maybe not the most obvious of fire hazard, but it's something you need to be looking out for, and it's something that's going to need fixing. Again, you're going to need an engineer out for that, aren't you? You're going to need an electrician. So bear that in mind. Right. Okay. This has come up a couple of times, and I thought it's worth just putting this slide in to help you understand when we talk about separation and compartmentation, you know, what we mean by that. So I'm sure you can read the definition for yourself, but essentially a building is constructed in such a way that it's broken down into smaller compartments. I'm in one now. I've got walls around me, ceiling, a floor, so I'm in a box. And the idea is that if a fire starts in this room, it should be contained within this room. It shouldn't be able to break out into the next door room and start spreading through the building. So that's what the diagrams here are showing, that we have walls, doors, fire doors, and fire floors that break the building down into smaller boxes. And the aim is to try and contain a fire in the room of origin. Yeah. And usually we'd look for 30 or 60 minutes separation. Okay, so that's what we mean by compartmentation. If you want to know why it's important, this is why it's important. So the photographer is standing in the same place. Unfortunately, we didn't take this photo, but it's a great example of why compartmentation is so important. You can see a fire door there on the left. And yep, okay, if you look at the very top of the door, you can see a little bit of smoke has managed to get through, hasn't it? But generally, looks normal to me, but look when the door's open, yeah? You can see how hot that fire was and just how damaging it was. So that's why compartmentation is so important, guys. The walls and the doors are there to stop that fire spread. If this was a means of escape, I'd have no trouble getting out. Yeah. So hopefully that really does paint a picture as to why it's so important. Okay, here are some examples, again, talking about compartmentation. So on the left, you can see somebody has done a bit of work in that building. They've punched a hole in a wall for some ducting, it looks like. And there's been no fire stopping whatsoever. No attempt has been made to maintain that separation. So a fire in this room is just going to find a gap and spread throughout the building. Okay. So if you walk your premises and this looks familiar, you're going to need to do something about it. On the right hand side, we've got an excellent example. Okay, that's what it should look like. Okay, so somebody's come along, they've installed, looks to be electrical cabling, and they've done a really great job of fire stopping. Okay, be careful about overusing pink foam. You will see pink foam everywhere. There's a tiny bit just there, actually. Yeah, it is good in some situations for small holes, but you can't use pink foam to fill big gaps. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to pink foam this photo on the right. Okay, good. Okay, now we have talked about it earlier. I'm just conscious of time, so I won't spend too long here, but commercial splits. So I think we all know what we mean now. We've got a shop downstairs and sleeping above. Okay. I think we can say that anybody downstairs is going to be alert and awake and familiar maybe with the surroundings. However, upstairs, you could have people that are asleep. Okay, and if a fire starts downstairs, we need to protect those sleeping occupants upstairs. That's why compartmentation is so key. Because if there's inadequate warning, these people will never know there's a fire. Yeah, and you can imagine, you know, the outcome there. So that's the commercial split, and this is what we would expect to see in a commercial split. Ideally, we want to see 60 minutes separation between the shop downstairs and the flat above. Okay, where you can't guarantee 60 minutes of separation, then we'd expect to see a linked alarm, so that a fire downstairs triggers the alarm and the occupants upstairs are alerted. Okay. Stairs that obviously come down from that sleeping above shouldn't open directly into the shop. Okay, ideally they want their own independent means of escape, and that's that third point. You would provide a protected route straight out to fresh air. Okay, not down into the storeroom, not down into a kitchen, not down into the shop to make your way out. It goes straight outside. Okay, escape windows. Yeah, obviously first floor only. I wouldn't want to be dropping out of a window anyway, but they may be acceptable in some situations. But whatever you do, it has to be supported in your fire risk assessment. That's the point there, okay? If you own or operate or live above a commercial split, get a proper fire risk assessor out. You need expert help to help you if this looks like your building, obviously not a fire. Okay, and then the final point there says all structural fire protection and elements of fire compartmentation should be inspected annually and any remedial action carried out. Okay, guys, the big point is if you're in a commercial split, get a fire risk assessor out. You need that expert help. Okay, good stuff. Good news. I think we're almost there, guys. Sophie's mentioned them. I've mentioned them. I'll show you another one if I look at my other camera. There we go. The CLG guides. There's 13 in total. Find the guide that is relevant to your business and print yourself a copy or get one on your laptop. Okay, use that guide to help you. Tomorrow morning when we send out the link to our website, you can go there and download the guide. We've made it really easy for you. It's there for you to just click download and keep. Okay, and they, as it says at the bottom, they provide practical examples and advice on how to manage fire safety. They are invaluable, and I really encourage you to download that guide. Okay, hopefully I've stressed that point enough. And a quick summary then before we wrap up, and we're doing good for time, guys. So remember that 86% of businesses never recover from a significant fire, so don't let that happen to you. Okay, it's great that you've joined us this evening. Hopefully we've answered some questions and we haven't bamboozled you too much. As I say, the presentation will be sent to you again tomorrow if you just want to review it in your own time. I think we've established that everybody online is a responsible person and you do have legal obligations. So, please familiarize yourself with those. This isn't really a word of warning, but a reminder that we are an enforcing authority and we will be auditing your premises. Many of you are here tonight because your name is on the list for this year coming. Okay, so that's why it's great that you're here. And yet, finally, just familiarize yourself with your duties as a responsible person. Okay, great. Well, thank you for joining us. Andy's just reminded me, before you all disappear, and I know it's getting late, guys, we would really love if you could just spend 2 more minutes and grab your smartphone, scan that QR code. That will take you through to a very short snap survey. And we'd love it if you could just, as I say, spend 2 minutes to fill that out. It enables us to deliver more free training. And it also ensures that the training we're delivering is what you guys want. If you want us to do this again, tell us. Okay. Right, okay. And I've just heard from Sophie that the good news is all the questions have been answered. So thank you, Simon. We're always here, guys. We will send you our contact details in the email tomorrow. You can call us, you can email the office, you can even drop into HQ if you need to, but please do reach out if you want some help and you want some advice, okay? That is why we're here. Okay. I think I'm going to wrap up then, guys. So thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Hopefully we can do this again sometime soon. I can see people leaving already, so fantastic. Thank you very much.